If she thinks that she's going to put me out of the car 45 miles away from where we live, that's a lie. Because ain't nothing no go so. Ain't nothing no go so. The next thing I saw was me with a rock standing outside, busting out all of the windows from her RV. Something volatile may happen when this trigger is pulled. Hello, knockouts. Tonya TKO here. And we can have a heart-to-heart conversation between you and I, right? About something that troubled me last week, and it didn't have to trouble me as much as it did, but it did trouble me, and I want to speak up about it. And I'm hoping that my coming back out and making this video to speak up about the comment that troubled me, I hope that this can be an inspiration to you to do as I have been talking about in these videos about confronting things that make you feel uncomfortable. So last week I made a video about how to avoid abuse, and I didn't even realize that October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So I'm going to actually make a few more videos about domestic violence before this month is out, and I'm also going to give you all the telephone number to the domestic violence hotline, because like I said in that last video, some of us are in abusive relationships and we don't realize that we're in abusive relationships. And that's why I'm coming out today to talk about this comment, because the comment was very troublesome to me, and I think that there may be other people who may be of this same mentality. I'm hoping that through making this video, it can be an example to you of how to handle and navigate in your own life. So let's give the intros. I am Tonya TKO, and I'm a self-love specialist and relationship expert from TonyaTKO.com. I teach you how to love yourself and each other. So if you like these videos, please subscribe, thumbs up, forward the video to someone who may need it, and let's jump right into the topic. Last week, I made the video about how to avoid abuse, and I received this comment from a person, and I can't paste the comment now because the person has since deleted it. But this comment turned into a back and forth. Because remember, I told you all the story about the woman who I was driving with. And because of this foolish situation with her handing me her phone and asking me to look up a telephone number, which she had misspelled in there, and then it turned into this bizarre situation where she started practicing unsafe driving techniques, as well as telling me that she would have put me out of her car. You can go back to that video and see the story if you choose to. I'll put the link around here. She ended up texting me to hang out, and I text her back that we need to have a conversation. And when she came over to have this conversation with me, she started getting loud with me. She turned her back on me, walked away, said she didn't have time for this, started gaslighting me, changed the story, etc. Now, this person in the comment heard this whole entire story that I depicted and decided that he would say, oh, I'm sorry for my face, sorry. Oh, you don't need to throw away the friendship just yet. You just need to teach her how to love you. Oh, God. And I wrote him back and I said, you come teach her. You come teach her. And we went into a back and forth about it because I was like, basically, you're speaking from your own personal experience. You're really talking about yourself and the amount of times and chances that you give people inside of your life and how you choose to teach people how to love you. And I had to explain to him, I said, listen, I am busy. I'm busy. First of all, I'm in the middle of writing and publishing 2 books. I have a women's retreat coming up. I create videos and content each week. I life coach and I do hypnotherapy and a lot of other things for my own personal development and growth. The very first thing that I'm going to say to you is when someone exhibits characteristics of abuse and behaviors that you find uncomfortable, which don't resonate with you, which you feel strange about inside, even if you can't put your finger on it, speak up about it the very first time. Talk about it if there's something that gyrates against your spirit, or if there's something that grates against your spirit, speak up about it. And nip it in the bud early, because one of the things that you have to remember is sometimes people don't realize when they're abusive, and some of us don't realize when we're being abused. We're like, oh, maybe it's not as bad as oh, maybe I'm making a big deal. Oh, maybe, and you start second guessing yourself. And I can imagine that this gentleman who wrote to me and told me that he second guesses himself, that he doesn't listen to his intuition. I'm a very intuitive person and I'm empathic. I listen to my intuition. So listen to yours, because there will be some things that some people do to you which you can't put your finger on of why it doesn't feel quite right. And then you continue to go along with it because listen to what it is that I'm saying. Some of you may ask, how can a woman stay inside of a relationship where she's getting boxed down and boxed up by some man? It doesn't start out that way. A person doesn't come out with you on the first date and slam your head into the dashboard. They don't do that because then you'll run away. They have to first chip away at your exterior. They got to chip away at your defense mechanism. They got to chip away at your insulation. They got to chip away at your esteem. They got to chip away at your support system. So they isolate you from friends and family. Oh, I don't like this person. I don't get along with these acting the fool at family gatherings. But even before then, it starts long before then. It starts with testing your resolve. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. It starts with testing your boundaries. How far can I get away with X, Y, Z? I'm going to push a little bit here and push a little bit there. I'm going to tell them, you don't know what you're talking about. People like you. I'm going to say this and then, next time I'm going to say, see if I can go a little bit further with it. Starts out incrementally and it starts out slowly. And before you know it, you've second guessed yourself. You've started listening to what it is that they're saying. You start identifying with what it is that they're saying about how it is that what you're doing is causing them to behave this way, because everybody else thinks that they're so great and this person is so charming and so wonderful otherwise. But behind closed doors, they're slamming your head against the dashboard, boxing you up against the side of your temple. And just like this guy questioned me, there are far too many of us out there questioning ourselves. Oh, you don't have to throw away this friendship. First of all, I never said that me and this woman were friends. I said we were associates. You know, we're going to talk about arbitral. I wish I had taken notes so that I could be a little more concise inside this video, but I didn't. So we're going to go forward. I took some notes, but not of everything that I wanted to say. Right now, there are a lot of things that are coming out that I didn't plan on saying. So many of us question ourselves, and then even worse, many of us go to our friends and family for permission. Should I leave this person? Should I do this? Should I do that? Trust your intuition, because there are people outside of the situation that don't know. They don't know the full story. They don't know what your inner guidance is telling you. They don't know what your guides and guardian angels are leading you towards. They don't know the full story and the full picture of all of it that is going on inside the gamut of you as a human being. You are a powerful creator and a powerful manifester. Listen to yourself. Don't second guess yourself. The moment that these things start up inside of your life, nip it in the bud. Have a conversation. Let's not talk to one another like that. Let's not use profanity at one another. Let's not introduce this into our relationship. And if they don't respect it, what did I say? ASV? Absence speaks volumes. I talk about arbitals inside my videos. And I'm hoping that me mentioning arbitals will be able to inspire you to really, truly listen. Arbitals are read between the lines. Really, truly listen to what it is that people are saying, because we're always communicating. We're always communicating. What is it that we are communicating? What is it that other people are communicating to us? To finish up a little bit of that story, listen to what it is that we have, and listen here, because this is what I'm saying. We have to nip these things in the bud. What did I tell you in that story? I said that I was driving along with this associate. She handed me her phone. She wanted me to look up the number to a hardware store, which she had misspelled inside of her phone. I asked her how to spell it, and I'm typing it in. I'm not finding it the way that she told me it was spelled. So I said, you know what? I'm going to look it up under hardware. And she's like, it's not under, trying to grab the phone out of my hand as we're driving. And there are three different things that I want you to pay attention to. Three different things of the orbitals of what happened in the car that I want you to read between the lines on. Okay? Number one. Number one is when I spoke to her very calmly and I said, you know, I can guarantee you that I will never holler at you. And I expect the same. And she started mocking me. That's one. She was like, I can guarantee you that. No, no, no. So listen, I expressed myself to her. Her response to that was to mock me. I can guarantee that. No, no, no. No, no. So she mocked me when I was expressing myself to her, letting her know what it is that I need, how I intend to show up, and what it is that I expect back from her. That was one. Two. Number two, she was like, any other person who's looking this up will. That's two. Now, what are the orbitals of that statement right there? Her comparing me to somebody else who's not in this car, claiming any other person, minimizing who it is that I am and my processes of information and the way it is that I, as a unique and intelligent human being, look up things or do things. Any other person. Who are these any other persons? People say things that we don't really pick up on in the moment. It seems like a benign enough statement, doesn't it? But what this statement, if you read between the lines on that statement is really saying, there is something wrong with you that any other person, and there are a lot of different peoples in the world. There are people who suffer from mental decline. There are people who suffer from mental illness. There are people who are too young to use a phone. There are people who are too old to use a phone. There are some people who don't know what a phone is. So any other person is now then comparing me to any gamut, any number of people that she has access to or knows about, which will do things in a way different than me. So obviously there's something that is therefore then wrong about the way that I'm doing it, or defunct or lesser than anyone else. So those are the orbitals of that. Number three, she said that she would put me out of her car. She said something along the lines of, if we were closer to some town, that she would put me out of her car. What are the orbitals of that? This is my vehicle. I will eject you from my vehicle at my whim or pleasing, regardless of how it is that you feel about it. Though we came from the same place, and though I picked you up, and though you are trusting me while you had entered into my vehicle, I am showing you that I have the power over you, your livelihood, and your safety. And I am willing to jeopardize and compromise your livelihood and your safety because we got into some sort of, could you call it an argument about this phone? So you know what I did? Listen, we were 45 miles away from where we live. 45 miles. Another orbital that I want you to look into is that I started off the video saying that I was triggered by abuse. What is a trigger? What does it mean to be triggered? Think about the trigger of a gun. It means that something volatile may happen when this trigger is pulled. So she tells me something like that. Listen, I'm going to say this, right? It had been a fear of mine because of how triggered I am by abuse. It had been a fear of mine that I would have entered into an abusive relationship. And I realized about 6 years ago that I do meet men who are abusive. I was dating this guy who told me about this ex-girlfriend of his whom he had punched in the face because she threw a knife at him. And Frenchie, my vagina dried up for him. I could not anymore. I did not care what his reason was for why he punched this woman in the face. I couldn't. And those were arbitals back then, really reading between the lines, listening to what a person is saying. And we're going to get back to trigger. So a person says something like that, and what do you do with that information? So one of the things that we have to make sure that we do is really listen to people when they talk. How do they talk about some of their other relationships? This woman who I was sitting inside of the car with, how did she talk about her other friends? You have to listen to people. You know, it's like abusive people are very charismatic. They will talk to you all about what other people are doing to them, always playing the victim to get you to come onto their side. They know how to elicit the sympathies of people who aren't really listening, who aren't arbitraling. So they'll start telling people, oh, what other people did to them and how they had to respond in a certain way because of what other people had done to them. Always playing the victim, sitting in victim energy. How did this woman talk about her friends? How did she refer to the people who were in her life? I listened to these things. I listened to them. So when we start talking about trigger, listen, I said that I was triggered by abuse. I said I was triggered by abuse. So what does that mean? Listen, there are a lot of factors in play here, a lot of things that I didn't mention. I did mention that she was much older than me. I didn't mention that she was Caucasian, because I didn't feel that that was relevant to the story as it had been, but it's definitely relevant to what it is that made me make my decision. But it's like you cannot question other people. When I say that I decided to ASV, I decided to ASV from that situation because I realized that the most loving thing that I could do for myself in that situation is to ASV, which is absence speak volumes. Leave that relationship. Because the age factor, she's much older than I am, and she's Caucasian. And if she thinks that she's going to put me out of the car 45 miles away from where we live, that's a lie. Because ain't nothing no go so. Ain't nothing no go so. Because if she thinks that I'm getting out of her car on the side of the road, she got another, well, I was about to use some profanity, but she got another doggone thing coming. Because that wouldn't have been me. So I had to imagine, okay, so I am hanging out with a person who is older than I am, who is Caucasian, who may at her whim decide to haphazardly engage in behavior which may have to have the police become involved. And then what happens from there? Because when I say that this is a trigger, abuse is something that triggers me. It will trigger a response from me which a person may not like. So she says that to me, and I immediately see myself on the side of the road. I see two different scenarios. I see myself on the side of the road, not wanting to get out of the car, this situation turning ugly, the police coming, and now my life is in jeopardy because this older person who can act senile and act like I'm just some wild N-word who decided to come upon her and do whatever the case may be. Because like I said, we have to listen to people. So I've listened to her talk about what are some of the things that she's done in the past. So we have to listen to folks. So the first thought that I had was just imagining the situation of what happens when the police become involved and this person starts acting senile. What happens then? The next thing I saw was me with a rock standing outside, busting out all of the windows from her RV. That's the next thing that I saw. And I said, you know what? I don't have time for this. I don't have time for this. I don't have time to be in a situation with people who are engaging in behavior that has the potential to either end or ruin my life. I don't have time for this. So I asked this question in the beginning. I said, what is the difference between the statement, I'm going to teach you how to love me, versus a person saying, please teach me how to love you? First of all, we have habits and patterns. Think about yourself when you want to break a habit. When you want to change your habit and pattern, think about how difficult it is for you to change your own habits and patterns when you want to. Now imagine trying to change somebody else's habits and patterns when they don't. You have a person who is resisting. I didn't say that I turned away from this relationship the very first month. I didn't say I got out of the car and never spoke to her again. I said I sent her a text message and she came over to have a conversation. And what she did with that time was to A, get loud, B, turn her back on me, and 3, change the story. She started changing it to something else. And then when she texted me again, she had changed the story again to something else after that. So it's like we have to do our own arbitals to keep us safe, to be able to do the things that we need to do for ourselves. This is why I say ASV, absence speak volumes, because when you love yourself, you realize that you are a precious gift. You're a precious gift, and coming into contact with you is a precious, wonderful gift. Like I said, I am a good person to know. I uplift the vibration wherever I go. Being my friend is a privilege, not a right. Being in my life is a privilege, not a right. I do not owe anyone access to me. I love myself, and when you love yourself, you don't offer yourself up as a sacrifice for people to do with as they choose. You do not. I'm not a spam sandwich. I'm something and someone very valuable, and so are you. Knowing you and being in your presence is a privilege for people. You do not owe them your presence. You do not owe yourself to sit there trying to fight and tussle against their habits and patterns. Now think about this. Your relationship with other people is an act of either self-abuse or self-love. Are you loving yourself through this relationship? So think about the difference between this, of me trying to teach her how to love me, versus me taking the time to teach myself how to love me, how to participate in actions that are self-loving, how to participate in behaviors that support and nourish and are an act of love for myself, teaching myself. I can stay there and I can stay in this relationship and I can say, I'm going to teach you how to love me. I'm going to show you. I'm going to use myself, use my time, my precious time. Remember, time is the most precious commodity that we have. I can use my precious time trying to show this person exactly how I like to be loved. Or I can do an act of self-love for myself and say, you know what? Listen, Tonya, you don't have to deal with that. I don't care, Tonya. You don't have to deal with it. I am with you. I will go with you. ASV. I will allow us to remove ourselves from this situation. Think about that. What I can do is teach her by example how to love herself, by showing her how a person who loves themselves behaves in relationships. They let their absence speak volumes. They don't offer themselves up as a sacrifice to that relationship, allowing themselves to be harmed or harm come to them through that relationship. No, I can teach her what self-love looks like by separating myself from a potentially toxic relationship. Remember, we talked about USOPs, early warning signs of potential problems. USOPs. Look in the relationship for early warning signs of potential problems, because I know that I have met abusive men, but it has not gotten to the stage of us entering into a relationship where there is physical abuse. Because I nip it in the bud when I start hearing things that I don't like, when people start speaking to me in such a way that I do not condone or approve of, when I have a feeling that comes up in my intuition about something that makes me uneasy in a relationship, I open up my mouth and I talk about it. And I do my orbitals, and I look for the USOPs. And before we get out of here, I want to end the video on this note with the word choice. And we talk about choice a lot because people choose how they want to behave. They choose how to show up in your relationship. There's a book by Lundy Barcroft called Why Does He Do That? It's an amazing book. If you think that you have ever been in an abusive relationship, or if you were in relationships in which you felt small, and especially if you were in any relationships which involve violence, Get this book. Why does he do that? It gets into the psychology and the mindset of a person who decides to abuse. It is a choice, because those same people who decide to go box you up and down against your head, those are the same people who know how to control themselves when they're in front of the police. They know how to control themselves when other family members are around. They know how to control themselves in regular everyday life. But when it comes to you, all of a sudden they have no control. Oh, no, no, it doesn't go down like that. It is a choice. There is a point which happens inside of their mind where they make the choice to go on and start beating you up. They make that choice. And it is a conscious choice. The same conscious choice that they make, that they decide not to make in society. Listen, nobody has the right to put their damn hands on you. And nobody has the right to talk down to you either. This is why I'm saying self-love and self-fortification is necessary. Because one thing that some of you who have been in abusive relationships will know and realize is that when they're breaking stuff up, they know the difference between breaking up your stuff and breaking up theirs. Somehow they have the control and the wherewithal not to break their own things. The things that they're destroying and smashing and slamming and throwing away just all happen to be your stuff. And I made that video about Chris Brown when I was like, if a baby had hit Chris Brown with a 2x4 with the same intensity at whichever that Rihanna, that he claimed Rihanna had hit him, he wouldn't turn around and punt that baby 10 feet into the air. Why? Because of conscientious choice. He saw Rihanna and he decided that he would make the choice to beat her to a pulp. It was a choice. Notice you don't see him in any fistfights and altercations with police. Listen, I'm done talking about it. I'm done. I just wanted to talk about that. I would love your comments below. Make sure that you subscribe and ring the bell on the videos. Remember, if you feel that you may be in an abusive relationship, contact the domestic abuse hotline. And I'll place the number here on the video. Take care of yourself and keep yourself safe. Love yourself through your relationship. And on that note, come on, let's hug. Today was a tough topic. Hug me, hug me. Oh. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. All right. Go out there and love one another. But most importantly, what? That's right. Love yourself. And love yourself enough to know how it is that you deserve to be treated in relationships. And remember, there are many types of relationships out there, including relationships that you have with your family and the relationship that you have with yourself. How do you deserve to be treated, even by yourself? And on that note, Tonya TKO, and I am out. Peace.